18 European countries have seen their populations decline over the past 30 years. 4 of them have even lost more than a quarter of their residents. Today, we'll reveal the 10 European countries that are dying the fastest. The data we'll present covers the last 30 years and includes both citizens and immigrants residing in these countries. But we've also prepared a video on the 10 European countries that, according to Eurostat forecasts, will experience the greatest loss of the local population in the future, excluding immigrants. Welcome to this new video from Amazing Europe. Number 10. Serbia. Serbia is undergoing an unprecedented demographic collapse. Over the past 30 years, it has lost 11% of its population. Nearly 800,000 people have disappeared into thin air. And beware, these figures don't even include Kosovo, which declared independence from Serbia in 2008. This move divided Europe. While most countries recognized the new state, others, such as Greece, Slovakia, Romania, Spain, Cyprus, and of course Serbia, opposed it. Serbia today holds a dubious record. It's among the countries with the oldest population in the world. Mortality rates are skyrocketing, and birth rates are plummeting, with only 8.74 births per 1,000 inhabitants. But that's not the real tragedy. The main issue is mass emigration. And do you know what's most surprising? It's not just about low salaries or unemployment. Studies and interviews reveal something deeper. Serbian youth are utterly disillusioned. They don't believe the situation will ever improve, living in a state of constant uncertainty. It's impossible for them to plan a future in Serbia, so they pack their bags. Number 9. Romania. Let's move to Romania, where the demographic situation is even more dramatic. The country has lost an incredible 13.4% of its population in the past 30 years. A staggering figure that tells a story of an unprecedented crisis. Joining the European Union in 2007 triggered a massive exodus. It's estimated that about 5.5 million Romanians now live abroad, drawn by better opportunities and a higher quality of life. Of these, a staggering 2 million have settled in Italy and Germany, 2 of the most popular destinations. But beware, this mass exodus didn't start with EU membership. Its roots lie in the dramatic collapse of the communist regime. Everything began in 1989 when the Romanian people, tired of years of oppression and poverty, courageously rebelled against Ceausescu's regime, leading to his shocking execution on Christmas Day that year. The dictator's fall marked the end of a dark era but didn't solve the country's problems. The result was mass migration to the west, a hemorrhage that continues to this day. To make matters worse, the mortality rate is alarming. There are 15.4 deaths per 1,000 inhabitants, a figure even worse than Serbia's. Number 8. Albania. Albania is an incredible case that leaves you speechless. Today, the country is experiencing an unprecedented tourism boom and aims to become the new Portugal, attracting wealthy retirees from across Europe with its authentic charm and low costs. But what a difference compared to the past. Older Italians remember it well. The images of ships packed with Albanians fleeing post-regime misery are still etched in collective memory. It was 1991 when tens of thousands of people left their country in search of hope, landing on Italian shores with dreams of a better life. Today, Albania is a completely different country, looking toward the future with a slowly growing economy. But the scars of that painful past are still evident. Albania has lost 14.2% of its population over the past 30 years, an impressive figure reflecting a deep demographic crisis. That's not all. Albania has the third largest diaspora in the world, surpassed only by Bosnia and Herzegovina and Guyana. In inland areas, poverty is still widespread, and young people, just like in Serbia, see no prospects. Some municipalities have implemented desperate measures, offering €5,000 and zero local taxes to attract young people. But these measures are not working. Number 7. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Even in 7th place, Bosnia and Herzegovina is the most dramatic case in all of Europe, a true demographic alarm. It has already lost 15.1% of its population, and according to Eurostat projections, it literally risks extinction. The numbers are chilling. If the situation does not change, by the year 2100, the country will have lost another 49.4% of its inhabitants, the steepest decline expected on the European continent. But there's an even more disturbing detail. Excluding immigrants and considering only the local population, Bosnia will not be the country set to empty out the most. If you want to know which country it is, Check out the video linked at the top right. In the meantime, the present paints a bleak picture. Each year, the country loses 1.5% of its population, an astonishing figure that mainly affects young graduates and qualified professionals. This phenomenon is terrifying for Bosnians, who see the future of their country slipping away along with its brightest talents. As if that weren't enough, the birth rate is among the lowest in the world. But how could it be otherwise? With fewer young people and an unstable economic situation, starting a family is almost impossible. The Dayton Accords of 1995 ended the war, but the structural problems remained unresolved, and the country continues to sink. Number 6. Croatia. On paper, Croatia seems to be the country that has recovered best from the devastating Balkan conflict. With a per capita GDP of $17,000, $10,000 more than Bosnia, it appears to be a success story. Yet the numbers tell a more complex reality. Since 1994, the country has lost 17.3% of its population, a percentage even more striking considering a unique phenomenon in the region. It is not just rural areas that are emptying, but especially the cities. The cause is a housing crisis that particularly affects young people. Croatian media have been clear in highlighting this chronic issue. In the country, wages are too low, rents are sky high, and property prices are unaffordable, pushing an entire generation to pack their bags. This phenomenon not only drives emigration but also discourages births, further exacerbating the demographic decline. But here's the surprise. While Croatians are leaving, immigrants are arriving in droves, drawn by the tourism boom and the job opportunities it creates. In 2023, for the first time in 15 years, net migration was positive. And it's not just arrivals from Bosnia and Serbia. A new trend shows a strong migration flow even from Nepal, making Croatia a case study in its own right. Number 5. Bulgaria. Bulgaria is facing a terrifying demographic crisis, with numbers that are deeply alarming. The country records 8.15 births against a staggering 18 deaths per 1,000 inhabitants. This is the highest mortality rate in the European Union, a record the country would gladly do without. But where does this negative statistic come from? The answer is troubling. A shocking 82% of deaths are caused by circulatory diseases and cancers. Doctors have been unequivocal in pointing fingers at two major culprits, smoking and alcohol, which are literally decimating the Bulgarian population. However, there is one surprising statistic: Bulgarian women are the youngest mothers in Europe. Even so, this distinction is not enough to reverse the terrible demographic collapse. Why? Because there's another massive problem: mass emigration. In 2019, as many as 40,000 Bulgarians packed their bags to seek fortune elsewhere. In comparison, the inflow was negligible. Only 13,000 people moved to the country, and just 9,000 expatriated Bulgarians decided to return home. This unstoppable exodus results from 30 years of continuous emigration, which has led Bulgaria to lose 22.6% of its population. It's a crisis with no end in sight, transforming the country profoundly. Number 4. Moldova. Moldova is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis, with a population decline of 25.9% over the past 30 years. And unfortunately, according to EUROSTAT projections, the worst is yet to come. By the year 2100, the population is expected to drop by an additional 38.6%. This scenario makes Moldovans one of the peoples most at risk of disappearing within the national borders. Of course, Moldovans will continue to exist, but largely abroad. The numbers are staggering. Each year, 150,000 people, mainly young people, leave the country. Of these, only 100,000 return, but most are over 50 years old, having made their fortunes abroad and choosing to retire in their homeland. Journalist Vitaly Chobanu paints a bleak picture. Just 50 kilometers from the capital, you'll find an almost surreal landscape: ghost villages with few lights on at night, abandoned farms, crumbling schools, collapsed roofs, and broken doors everywhere. It's an apocalyptic scene that tells the story of a country slowly emptying itself better than any statistic ever could. This hemorrhage of young people and the workforce represents a massive challenge for Moldova's future, a country at risk of becoming a land of memories rather than opportunities. Number 3. Ukraine. We all know Ukraine is going through a dramatic situation. However, its terrible condition has roots that go back long before the war. On February 24, 2022, the large-scale Russian invasion began, a war that had already been simmering since 2014 with the annexation of Crimea and conflicts in the Donbass. This conflict triggered the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, forcing millions of Ukrainians to flee and seek safety elsewhere. But wait, the war has only accelerated an already existing process. Pre-war numbers were already alarming, 9.23 births compared to 14.3 deaths per 1,000 inhabitants. This worrying gap, combined with massive emigration, led to a demographic decline of 27.3% since 1994. Future projections are grim. Experts predict that by the year 2100, the population could shrink by an additional 40.7%, and these estimates were made before the conflict even began. But the problems don't end there. The health of Ukrainians was already in crisis. In 2020, 1.7% of deaths were attributed to suicide, while 64% were due to cardiovascular diseases and strokes. The war, with its burden of stress, destruction, and poverty, has only worsened an already devastating situation. Number 2. Lithuania. Lithuania faces one of the most severe demographic crises in Europe, with alarming statistics. The death rate is 15.6 per 1,000 inhabitants, and it shows no signs of decreasing. The main issue is a life expectancy that is growing too slowly compared to the rest of the world. Experts agree on three main culprits: alcoholism, obesity, and suicide, factors that are literally decimating the population. Alcoholism is a national scourge, with an estimated 1 in 3 men suffering from serious alcohol problems. The consequences are devastating: high rates of road accidents and an increase in cardiovascular diseases. Obesity is another issue, with over 60% of adults overweight, causing a spike in strokes and heart problems, the second leading cause of death in the country. Another huge problem is the suicide rate, which surged after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The dramatic economic and social changes left deep scars, and although there has been a slight reduction since the peak in 1995, Lithuania still holds the grim record for the highest suicide rate in the European Union and the OECD's 36 countries. With almost non-existent mental health services and one of Europe's lowest healthcare budgets, the result is a demographic collapse of 28.6% in just 30 years. Before revealing number 1, if you found this video interesting, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to activate all notifications. We sincerely thank you for supporting our project. Number 1, Latvia. Latvia holds a sad and worrying record. Its population has decreased by 30.6% over the past 30 years, the highest negative record in Europe. And the future doesn't look any brighter. According to EUROSTAT, if significant changes don't happen, the country will lose another 40% of its population by the year 2100. Despite Latvia's significant progress since leaving the Soviet Union, which has somewhat slowed emigration, the phenomenon remains rampant. Thousands of young people continue to leave the country in search of better opportunities. To tackle this demographic hemorrhage, the government has tried an unexpected move, forging trade agreements with China to stimulate the economy and create jobs. This has led to a real immigration boom from China, transforming Latvia into a new frontier for migration. Today, 13.1% of the population consists of foreigners, with a significant Chinese presence. But there's another unsettling statistic about health. Latvian men live, on average, 10 years less than women, a gap that is double the EU average of 5 years. According to the Baltic News Network, the primary causes are a high incidence of cancer and a culture that leads many men to neglect their health issues. This is literally decimating the male population, contributing to the country's dramatic decline. Now it's your turn. What is the situation in your country? What do you think about the causes decimating the population of these nations? Please note that the figures you heard in this video include both citizens and immigrants. But if you want to know which European countries will experience the largest loss of their local population, click the video in the top right corner. That's all for this video. See you next time.